Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. We know it's not always easy to take time on a Thank you. It's not always easy to take time on a Saturday, especially near the end of May when things start to get hectic in everyone's lives with graduations and whatnot, but it's exactly for that reason that we are gathered here today. It is because of what is happening at our State House that affects our schools and affects our youth of the state of Ohio that we have come to learn more and do more to make sure that justice is for all, that history stays honest, and that doctors and parents stay in charge of their kids' health care. Radical ideas, I know. I'm Pastor Brian Sachs. I'm the pastor of Bainbridge Community UCC. We welcome all of you here today. We want you to know how proud we are of everyone that came to participate in this great work, and also that the restrooms are located through the doors over there. Also a water fountain, because hydration is important. With that, I'd like to bring up some of our partner organizations that help make this event happen. First off, we have Chris Steigerwald from Giaga Soji Network.
Hello, everyone. I am Chris Steigerwald, one of the founders of Giaga Soji Support Network. Soji stands for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity, which everyone here has. And we wanted to kind of normalize that. And instead of using the LGBTQIA and on, which people don't always just fall in one category, we chose the name Soji. And our group, unfortunately, came together for the first time in January of 2020 with a priority of starting support groups by April, and that didn't happen. So we had a very slow start in 2020, but things have really picked up. We have support groups for middle school, for high school. Those support groups are open to people on the LGBTQ spectrum and allies. And I was just telling some of our partners that I have the honor and privilege to be present at those support groups. And I find that those youth are really amazing kids. Because of what they've experienced, difficulties and challenges and not always being respected at school, they are all so kind and compassionate and accepting of each other. And they love getting together because it's a space where they can all feel so comfortable and to be themselves. So if you or you know anyone who's interested in getting involved in our support groups for middle and high school, we have a table of information. Please take the information, and you can also give us your email address if you would like to be on our mailing list. We have, and I do want to recognize that we have several people who are on our board and serve on committees. So if those people would stand up or raise their hands, I'd like to thank them. And now we have youth coming back from college who are going to get involved this summer. So we're excited about that. We also have a support group for parents of transgender, whether they're youth or adults. I'm sure we could have many more support groups. We just kind of lack the resources. We do community education because we feel like a big part of our advocacy is to educate the community. And the more we can do that, the better. And we are having our first large event, any kind of large event this summer. There's going to be a Pride event on Sunday, June the 26th, and we have information about that too that you can take home and hang up and share with other people. So thank you all for being here, and you're going to hear some amazing speakers next.
Another partner organization that helped put this on was the Giaga League of Women Voters, and we have Rita Simchek up here.
Hi, welcome today. I'm going to read a little bit about our purpose, and then I'm going to talk about who we are here in Giaga County and what we have been doing. The purpose of the League of Women Voter of Giaga County shall be to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League of Women Voters of Giaga may take action on government measures and policies in the public interest in conformity with the principles of the League of Women Voters of the United States and also the League of Women Voters of Ohio. It shall not support nor oppose any political party or candidate. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan. We support issues. We do not support candidates. We have grown in the past 3 years from 8 members, and we are now at 52 members. The League of Women Voters is not just women. We definitely have males. We are not discriminatory of age, gender, race, sex. We include everyone as long as you focus on promoting the issues of democracy. Some of the things that we are doing at the League of Women Voters is we have an observer corps where we have members of our league who go to county and to school board meetings and to other local meetings and report these meetings and put it on our website and publicize it so that people are aware of what's going on in the county, especially when some of the meetings have not been allowed to be shown virtually. So this is a way of you getting information about some of our activities at the county offices. The other thing that we have been doing is that we do voter registration, and we are increasing our outreach to voter registration. We are also starting to get new younger members, and just had an intern from Kenston High School doing her internship with us as a way of learning more about government. We invite you to learn more about the League of Women Voters at our table. Please, if you have moved since your last registration, the last time you voted, please make sure that you are current with your registration to vote. July 5th is the cutoff for voter registration for our August 4th primary. Thank you very much. And again, there are people at the table who can help you with information about the League.
We also wanted to give a shout out to our partner churches in this. It was not just Bainbridge UCC that put this together. Chesterland UCC. Did you want to come up? No, we're good. And then we also have the Social Justice Advocacy Ministry at Federated Church, and Susie's going to come up and tell you a little bit about that.
So I'm Susie Kowalik. I retired as associate pastor of Federated Church in 2019. But we started this social justice advocacy ministry group in January of 2017, and we have been going strong since. So our purpose is to be a voice and witness to God's love for all people and creation, and to advocate for justice for those who are marginalized, discriminated against, and denied their inherent rights as children of God and citizens of our world. We feel that these are gospel values, and we want to stand up against people who say they are not and who take other positions thinking that they are the voice of Christianity in America today. So we stand behind the marginalized and those whose voices are not heard so readily. So if you want some information on what we do, we have lots of speaker nights. We have all kinds of events. There's brochures inside on a table. We welcome you to join us or to join our mailing list and see what all what all goes on with our ministry team. Thank you.
So those are some of the organizations that got this event together, and we're also able to contact many of the speakers we're about to hear from. The first we're about to hear from is Cynthia Peebles. I'm not good with names. Cynthia Peebles from Honesty in Ohio Education, a coalition that has been put together to fight the education bills that we want you to know more about and help stop today.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming out today. I know you probably had a lot of other alternatives and places where you could have spent your morning, and we all chose to be here today because we care about education, we care about our students, we care about our hard-working, brave educators, and we care about the future of Ohio. That's why we are all here today. And I want to thank Bainbridge, UCC, for inviting us out today. We did partner on another event when we were talking about these harmful bills as well. So I always like to give gratitude for having us be back or inviting us back. So I want to start by centering this conversation in what all of our collective values about education are. We all believe that every student deserves an honest, high-quality education that's grounded in facts, truth, and diverse perspectives. We believe that dismissing racism, discrimination, and hate, or minimizing its trauma and impact, prevents pathways for healing, reconciliation, and growth. We believe that education must reflect and celebrate all student identities, cultures, and experiences for our students to feel safe, valued, respected, appreciated, and for them to be able to fully engage in learning and development. And we believe that students, educators, families, and communities must all be partners in the education and development of all of our children across Ohio. And finally, we believe that students, educators, and Ohioans must all be empowered to critically examine and discuss all aspects of our complicated and complex history, good and bad, our victories and our losses, and must be accountable. And we must fully understand how they connect, continue to influence, and impact how we live today and how we will live in the future. We live in our past. Now, I'm here specifically to talk about 3 educational gag orders that are sitting in our State House right now, and there was a new one just recently introduced in April. These bills are designed to censor education, whitewash our history, sanitize hate and genocide, and erase culture and identity. These bills are part of a nationally funded, nationally coordinated, and nationally fueled political agenda to instill fear and distrust of our educators and public education. Make no doubt about this, these bills and this legislation is being imported into Ohio, and our legislators are pawns in this national political agenda, and we need to hold them accountable for what they are doing to our students and our educators across the state of Ohio. This isn't just about the privileged districts, this is about all of the districts. We are all at risk from these bills. These bills are also creating dog whistles for white supremacy, anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, intolerance, xenophobia, and hate. We have seen this happen with these bills. We are seeing a surge of hate across our school districts right now. We are seeing racialized graffiti, homophobic graffiti. We are listening to about students getting locked in closets right now by their educators. Google. We have to combat the bills and what these bills are encouraging and empowering people that live in this white dominant narrative lane. We have to come together and have conversations about why we need to push these bills back. Now, this national attack against education, like I said, is well coordinated. There are 42 states across our country right now that have either introduced and or passed these types of bills or actions in their state house or in their state boards of education or in their local school districts. 42 states. Now, this wave of hate is in sharp response to the massive movement and progress that came out of the summer of 2020. This progress towards racial and social justice that happened after the brutal murder of George Floyd. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Completely shook the world, not just our country, but the world. And it moved us to want to be better and to do better. And there was a wave of hateful legislation and harm that started birthing after that movement towards social and racial justice progress. We've seen it in our voter bills, our voter access. We've seen it in public health. We've seen it in education. We've seen it in women's rights, healthcare rights as well. Education is just one of the collateral damage that is happening out of a response to what happened in the summer of 2020 and what we collectively know to be the truth. Now, these three bills that are sitting in our state house, they censor and prohibit the education, discussion, course requirements for college, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, professional development, and the funding to comprehensively understand all aspects of our history, race, racism, sex, sexism, sexuality, gender identity, the institutional and systemic issues that currently live in our nation and around the world, patterns in history, and what is happening in modern day society. These three bills are designed to stop that learning and to stop those discussions and to stop that training. And two of these bills use harsh, draconian penalties to threaten and intimidate our educators into silence. These brave educators, many who have been doing this work for decades, boldly doing this work for decades, maybe not even having the support of their district, but they're doing it anyway. And now there are hundreds, thousands of educators that are doing it now, and these bills are trying to stop that. From our children getting an honest, accurate education about our nation and about the world. These bills will revoke professional licenses from our educators and administrators for violations. They will withhold state funding from our public school districts that are already underfunded and under-resourced, that are hanging on by their fingernails coming out of the pandemic. Instead of offering additional resources, additional funding to help our students and our educators who are also processing their own trauma from the pandemic, instead of offering additional supports and infrastructure and resources, they're pulling them off the table and policing them. And lastly, these bills encourage families to file suits, legal suits, against our educators and our teachers for teaching the truth. Now, these three bills, thankfully, as of last week, there is a silver lining to all of this, I promise. These three bills are all sitting in the same House committee right now, which makes our job of advocacy a little bit more streamlined. These three bills, House Bill 616, 327, and 322, are all sitting in the House, State, and Local Government Committee. tattoo that into your frontal lobe. This is a committee that we have to be on every day. We have to be on their phones, we have to be in their inboxes, we have to be in their offices beating back these bills. Now, looking at the legislative calendar, now I'm going to segue into the legislative updates. Thank you for allowing me that open. Our legislative calendar, our legislators will be going out on recess, scheduled recess, beginning June 8th. So when they leave June 8th, many of these bills will not be moving because they will not be in the State House. They will not be returning until after the general elections in November. So they have a very short window right now from today until June 8th to move these bills. And they are moving fast right now. There are other bills that we track at Honesty that I will not be speaking about today, but I'm happy to talk to you about them as well. They are moving also. So we really have to monitor what is going on in the State House and closely monitor this committee. 616 is the newest of the three bills. It was just introduced in April, early April. It was just assigned to the State and Local Government Committee, and we are very concerned that this bill will see testimony before the June 8th recess. So later today, please find me at the table and I'll give you all of the information about 616, talk to you about the bill. There will be a letter writing campaign inside the church as well. 616, as you may have read in the media, is what's being labeled as Ohio's Don't Say Gay bill because it imports the harm and hate of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. But please understand, 616 is beyond a homophobic, transphobic bill. It is an intersectionally harmful bill. 616 bans divisive and inherently racist concepts from being discussed, taught, and taught in the classrooms in K through 12. And it also prohibits the education and discussion about sexuality and gender identity. Now, these legislators that drafted this bill were very specific about what they consider divisive and inherently racist concepts. And they outlined them to be critical race theory, the 1619 Project, get this, diversity, equity, and inclusion learning outcomes are prohibited. DEI learning outcomes are prohibited in K-12 education. Not only what our students learn, but what our educators learn. As our educators right now are learning about culturally responsive education, as our educators are learning and leaning into social emotional learning, as our educators are examining their own biases and what they bring into the classroom and how they are able to respond to the needs, the cultural needs, the home needs, the environmental needs of every single student that's sitting in their class, not only the privileged few. Our teachers are leaning into this work boldly, and this bill is trying to take it off the table. And finally, this bill also says that the State Board of Education is allowed to further define what inherently and divisive concepts are, inherently racist and divisive concepts are. Now, let me explain why this is concerning right now. Our State Board of Education in October, by a 10-7 vote, rescinded our anti-racism resolution that the State Board of Education passed in July 2020. By a 10-7 vote. And now they are being allowed to decide what a divisive concept is and what an inherently racist concept is that they don't want our K-12 students learning in school. Just a quick plug, 5 of those state board members who voted to rescind that anti-racism and equity resolution are up for election in November. Keep your eye on them. We have more information about that as well. We have to be vigilant about the State House, our State Board of Education, and our local school districts and our higher ed campuses. 616 legislatively is the bill that we're most concerned about moving right now. In the conversations that we're having with legislators and lobbyists and folks that have their ear to the ground in the State House and to those marble walls are hearing that this bill is very likely to move. 327, which is another educational gag order that's in the State House, is the most broad of the three bills. 327 hits our K-12, higher ed, state agencies, political subdivisions, and also bans that DEI, anti-racism, anti-bias education. This is very concerning because it extends beyond what happens in the classroom. When I said state agencies and political subdivisions, that is shorthand for our police departments, our sheriff's departments, our county health departments, our public libraries. So when we're talking about anti-bias training, when we're talking about anti-racism training, and we're talking about our law enforcement arms, when we're talking about racialized policing, when we're talking about police brutality, when we're talking about police reform, this is not the time to be taking that type of education off of the table. We all need to be leaning into this work, and 327 is designed to take that off the table. 327, we call it the monster bill because of how broad this bill is, and it hits all of us where we live. It hits our local government. It's going to hit you in your home. It's not just what happens in the classroom. That's why we all have to be vigilant about 327. 327 had a lot of legs to it. It was moving quickly. The two co-sponsors of 327 were trying to move it out of committee and quickly move it over to the House floor on the same day for a vote, but they couldn't get enough votes on the House floor. And then, suddenly, one of the primary sponsors of the bill made some horrific, outrageous, repugnant remarks about the Holocaust when she was trying to defend the bill. And even Speaker Cupp had to step back. So 327 has been a little bit dormant. She is licking her wounds from the public backlash that her remarks made. But in the wake of those remarks, that's when 616 slid in. And we also have 322. 322 just hits our K-12 classrooms, and 322 restricts controversial topics, restricts current events from being taught in the classroom, restricts service learning, and restricts action civics. Action civics, for those of you not familiar, is teaching our students how to civically engage with our legislators and local government, teaching them how a bill makes its way through the State House, teaching them how to engage with their city council, teaching them how to petition for what they want to happen in their own communities. This bill restricts action civics, basically takes it off the table. It does not allow our children to fully understand good governance and bad governance and be able to critically examine, interrogate, and hold our government leaders accountable. That's what these bills are designed to do, to restrict information, to censor education, and to deny our ability to hold our government accountable. Let's all remember, our elected leaders work for us. We vote for them. We put them into office to represent our needs and our priorities. That's why we elect them. And what they are doing, these bills, these are not our priorities. These are their political priorities. And it is cheap fodder for political campaign wins. It is fueled by misinformation and fear, and we have to hold them accountable. Our efforts to beat back 322 and 327 have been successful. We've been able to beat these bills back, and we have to do it with 616. I know it's frustrating watching the redistricting process, the wheels coming off the redistricting process, but these bills would prevent the comprehensive education to understand why we're gerrymandered, to understand how to contact those legislators, to understand how to stop the gerrymandering, to understand how the Ohio Supreme Court works. This is exactly why these bills cannot be in our State House, and this is exactly why they are in our State House right now, so that we cannot hold our leaders accountable. The final thing that I will say is a couple of other bills that will be moving this week, that were moving just this past week and that are moving again. House Bill 529, which is a bill that requires our K-12 educators to upload their curricula, their syllabi, any type of material that they use in the classroom, any type of websites they assign, any textbooks, any handouts. They have to upload that to their district's website and keep it updated on a regular basis. This is to create a pipeline for particular community members to police and harass our educators. Let's be clear, this information is already publicly available. These legislators want to create a portal where community members do not have to submit records requests and wait for records requests to happen. This allows particular community members to police and harass our educators on a daily basis, to make sure they are not teaching critical race theory, to make sure that they are not making our white students feel guilty about what has happened in the past, which is not happening. Our educators are not teaching critical race theory in the classroom, and our educators are not impugning our white students. That is not happening. It's not happening in the state of Ohio. I'd venture to say it's not happening in any of our states across the country. That bill will be having proponent testimony on Tuesday at 4 p.m. I encourage you to watch that testimony. You can watch all State House testimony on the Ohio channel live, and it's also recorded. There's a repository of archived videos, so you can watch any meeting, including the State Board of Education. And then finally, House Bill 454, which we're going to get to in just a second, is also moving, and Ginger will tell you more about that. So as we're getting ready for House Bill 616 to move, Honesty is hosting a testimony workshop this Thursday. We will be putting information out about that so that you can learn how to write your testimony and you can learn how to present that testimony to the State House in case it is called. These legislators are very wont to call testimony at the last minute, so we ask you for all three of these bills, write your testimony now, get it ready. Sometimes they give you 27-hour notice, so you don't have a lot of time to prepare that testimony. Write it now, get it ready, so when testimony is called, all you have to do is click send. We will have that testimony workshop on Thursday, and we're also looking to plan another rally down in Columbus on June 16th for 616. Thank you. Love that. Not my idea, but that 616 will be on June 16th down in Columbus, and we'll have more information about that. Please consider signing up for our mailing list. We follow all of these education issues and more in the Honesty Coalition. I know many of you already support our work and are very involved in the coalition and receive our updates. When you receive the information, please share it with your community, share it with your educators, share it with your professional networks, your colleagues, your faith groups, your civic organizations. We need everyone to know what is happening at the State House. This cannot slip under the radar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. So now we're going to hear from a couple education professionals. First off, we have Reverend Deborah Austin Sanders, who before she became Reverend Deborah Austin Sanders was Teacher Deborah Austin Sanders.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm Reverend Brian, and I also thank the church for this particular rally. This is wonderful. It is totally important that we rally around this particular situation. When I was coming up as a child, I was raised in Chagrin Falls Park. And as I was coming up as a child, there was a lot of racism. I dealt with it on a daily basis, unfortunately, as I attended the Kinston schools. But then I got into college. And I thought, okay, this is cool. As I was going to Kinston, I got my education. Then I went to Kent, and I got my education. And I figured that as an adult, well, this would be much better. Unfortunately, I dealt with racism there. I had a teacher who never even called on me, never even looked at me as a college student. So I say, I got my education, I became a teacher, I became a guidance counselor, For those types of reasons, because I wanted to make sure people, young people, did not get treated the way I was treated. I wanted to make sure they didn't feel the ugliness of racism, dealing with their sex or dealing with their race, their color, or any of that kind. Let me just tell you that young people, unfortunately, are mean in some of the schools, and so are some of the adults. And it's totally unfortunate, but we really have to rally around and show the love of God. It is so important that we move beyond the evilness of the world and we continue to display God's love, no matter what sex, no matter what race, no matter what disability. Love is real, and we need to shower it down. And especially during this time, as Cynthia was saying just a few moments ago, especially during this time where we have the political arena trying to stop, or we have educators who are trying to stop with the injustices that are happening, or avoid the injustices, or ignore the injustices of the world. We have to stand up. So this is so important that you guys are here. Continue to shower down our young people with the love. And also the educators. Not everybody is feeling the same way as some of the political arena folks are feeling, and not everybody is feeling the same in regarding hating, discouraging, avoiding, eliminating. It's real. Life is real. Different colors are real. Different sexes are real. Disabilities are real. But my God has taught me that we're supposed to love, that we're supposed to embrace. So I say thank you very much for being here, and thank you for supporting. Definitely, definitely, as Cynthia says, need your support. And continue to spread the love. Spread it to your families. Spread it to your friends, your neighbors. We have to stick together and look at the injustice of the world and let folks know we just don't agree. So I thank you very much for this couple of moments. I thank you very much for being able to, as I say, continue to keep the light shown in regards to justice. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to have Ginger Williams come up and give us an update from Trans Ohio about 454.
Thank you for having me here today. My name is Ginger Williams. I am a board member with Trans Ohio. I've been with Trans Ohio as a board member since 2016. Before that, I did a lot of volunteer work for not only Trans Ohio, but the Human Rights Campaign and Equality Ohio and other organizations. Right now, I spent this past winter volunteering with a LGBT youth organization in Sarasota, Florida. I'm going to get emotional. These politicians, it's an all-out attack, and you know it's an attack on race. It's an attack on what is in our wallet. It's an attack on our genders. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, on the south side of Youngstown, Ohio. I can remember, and this was in the 60s and 70s. I can remember riding in my grandmother's Buick on Glenwood Avenue and passing the Med Arts building on Glenwood Avenue, and my grandmother pointing out that that's the building that the doctor that does the sex change operations operates out of. That building to this day, it's still standing, fascinates me. If I had the ability to do the things that kids are able to do today, I wouldn't have been shoehorned into what society thinks I needed to be. Okay, that's still happening today, by the way, but I think things are a little bit better than they were in the 60s and 70s. Legislation should follow two simple rules. It should do no harm, okay? And it shouldn't single out any individual class. Do no harm, and don't single out individuals. Let me talk about 454. I was this Thursday was the second proponent hearing in Columbus for House Bill 454. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go down to Columbus and stand outside the State House, and they heard us. The feedback was that they heard everything that we were saying outside. So if there's going to be, by the way, another proponent hearing this coming Thursday. So if you're available, we'd like to have you there with us, so that we could raise our voices again to eliminate this. By the way, one of the stupid things that was said on Thursday, there were multiple things that were said stupid, but one of the things was that trans people should be able to just go for a walk, and this would go away. I walk a lot. I walked 3 miles this morning. This is me. This is who I am. I can't walk it off. So what House Bill 454 does is it bans affirming care. House Bill 454 is otherwise known as the Save Adolescents from Experimentation, or the SAFE Act. As I said, it bans affirming care, affirming medical and mental health care for children. This bill sets out to criminalize medical providers and parents for providing gender-affirming care to minors. The gender-affirming model of care seeks gender diversity and allows exploration without judgment. This process is supervised by professionals experienced in the type of care that utilizes the standards of care. And those standards of care are by the WPATH, the World Transgender group that gives us those standards, those guidelines. The Endocrine Society has standards of care for trans youth. Youth and the families of these youths seeking this care do not take it lightly and find a supportive, focused, individual plan by these providers. Healthcare professionals find this affirming model to be effective, and this affirming model is supported by the American Medical Association and by all the major medical societies in the United States and around the world, actually. This does not, by the way, imply that all youth go through a medical intervention, as medical intervention is not always the case. What it does mean is that children presently get the care that they deserve. This bill would do harm specifically to the trans and non-binary community. For the government to deny them this care is overreach. Legislators are not experts in gender care, and they don't know better than medical professionals and the therapists that have experience treating these children. So, again, if you're available on Thursday, we'd love for you to be there. Right now, I understand, again, with our ear to the ground, that there will be opposing testimony, our testimony, on June 2nd, the following Thursday. So if you can write to your legislators, write to the governor's office, volunteer with organizations like Trans Ohio or Equality Ohio, or in the education realm, GLSEN. One other thing about education to kind of add to what Cynthia had said, be aware of what's going on at your local school boards. I think it's important because Trans Ohio has been getting a lot of emails recently from parents of trans youth who are running into problems. They're struggling in their school systems. And a lot of this is happening at school board meetings. So, it used to be that we would get questions from teachers and school administrators on how to handle trans youth, and now it's the parents that are reaching out to us, telling us that their trans kids are having some issues. So again, know what's going on at the local level, and get out and vote, and know who you're voting for. That's all I have.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from another education professional, this one a Kenston teacher, Anissa Smith.
Hi everyone, my name's Anissa. I've been teaching at Kenston for 28 years. Sorry about my attire, I came from a yoga class. In the last 3 years, we have an amazing class called Women and Minority Studies. And it's taken us so long to get this class. And the students that are in my class are students who maybe never read anything about someone who looked like them, maybe never saw in a history book much about somebody who looked like them or felt like them. And the frustration is when I see these bills, I'm thinking, finally these students have a class where they can learn about their history. They can learn about Asian Americans. They can learn about Native Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, LGBTQ people. And it just breaks my heart that our representatives want to get rid of that. It's an elective class. This class is so powerful for so many students that are not represented. They're not heard. The other day, we had a Socratic seminar in our classroom. Well, it's not really, it's more of a circle talk. And I had 2 students who've never spoken all semester actually speak. And honest to God, the look on their face was like, wow, I've been heard. They've never been heard before. And to take that away, I don't understand it. Our legislators want to regulate or deregulate everything with business. But when it comes to teaching, they want to regulate. Okay, if you want to let local schools do what they want, then let my local school have this class. I went and I talked to Representative Grendel, and she's like, oh, I don't think they do away with your class. Well, I'm telling you right now, when I look at the changes on our board, I'm not liked. I'm the enemy, just because I want my students who don't have a voice to have a voice, to learn their history. I had another student who gave a whole presentation on LGBTQIA history. And I can't tell you how much that meant to that young man, because never in his history of classes had he ever been able to talk about that. And he did such an amazing job, and the kids were so open-hearted and started talking when they'd never talked before. We need to hear their voices. I go back to our first speaker, is it Cynthia? When she talked about voting, and I say this to my students, if you don't take an interest in politics, it will take an interest in you. And I tell that to my students all the time. You have to vote. You are the young generation. You're silent, and you have got to have a voice. Have your voices heard. Research your candidates. Okay, you may be Democrat or Republican, and you're going to get a nice list that tells you exactly who to vote for. But just don't go in the voting booth and look at that. Research each person, and then vote who aligns with your ideology. That's what our government is about. Voting and being involved and having your voices heard. And I think the majority of Americans today are silent. It's those people that are so loud and obnoxious and rude and discourteous that are being heard. And we have to speak up. We can't be silent. I don't want my class to go away. It's the best class I've ever taught. I'm sorry. It's made such a difference to so many kids that have never had a difference made for them before. So please, go out and vote. Write your legislators. Complain to them. I don't even know, call them. Even if it's only a 20-second, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I live in this district. I disagree with this bill. It is detrimental. You should be doing no harm. Why are we harming these kids? What do they care? These kids are amazing, and we have to get our youth involved. Make sure your children, your grandchildren are registered to vote. Make sure if they go off to college that they get an absentee ballot. That's a big thing. They don't know to get that absentee ballot. We have to have the younger generation vote. They love each other so much more than when I was a kid in the 80s. We didn't talk about anything. And they care about each other, but we have to put the fire under the youth to get out there and vote. We have to put the fire under our neighbors, our friends, our relatives. Tell your stories. Because when you tell your stories, more people will listen. And we need more listening. We need more love. Thank you.
Speaking of telling stories, we have two youth come up and tell their thoughts and share their stories. And first up, we have Blake, who's come all the way from Lake County to join us today.
Sorry if I sound a bit monotone. I am very nervous. More than 225 bills that target LGBTQ content or identities have been filed in the first 3 months of 2022. I am a 15-year-old trans male, and now that I'm rereading this, I realize I might repeat some things. So please keep in mind I am a 9th grader. Let's start with House Bill 616. There's a part in the bill that states that a teacher can lose their license for teaching anything about sexual orientation, gender identity, or providing any material about it. Why would you want to delete that history? I don't understand what they think the teachers are teaching kids. Do they think that they are brainwashing us? Books with princes and princesses have happy endings are what they want us to conform to. How can children have free discussions about the real world if we continuously put bans on them? How can we learn and grow? How can we be true to ourselves? Ohio State Rep. Jean Schmidt says that parents should be able to see what their child is being taught. My mom does that every day. She asks me and she checks my homework. That is what good parents do. They're going for the counselors too. In all of my schools, the counselor was the one I could talk to. They were always there and supported you no matter what. Kids at school that don't have a safe place at home, they went to the counselor. The counselors helped me with my bullying, the name changes, and just being safe in general. How dare the government try to take away my safe place? I deserve to feel safe, and we all do. What will happen to the kids that don't have a safe place at home? Will they just have to hide without even saying anything? House Bill 454. They want to take away any type of emotional and medical support for helping youth identify their gender. They want to remove medical treatment options. All testosterone, hormone, and gender transitioning procedures will stop. What about the kids that have already started testosterone or hormones? Where does that leave me when I haven't even started it myself? Living the wrong gender again? Will they have to do it in secret, or will the bill let them finish? Some people think that doctors are experimenting on the youth. Some people believe that parental figures are just doing whatever they can to make their child happy, to help us through tough times or escape from a bad home. We're humans who were born the wrong gender. We're not lying to our parents just to fit in. Jeanette Cooper from International Partners for Ethical Care says that when kids spend more time outside online, they desist. I appreciate your worry for my vitamin D intake, but I've spent a daily time outside my whole life, as I have been trans my whole life. Anything in there for the whole bill, I hate it. I hate it when I am called a girl. I hate it when they call me by my dead name. I know in my heart and in my soul that I am a guy. I have been asked on the school bus if I had male parts. I told them I was male, and they repeatedly called me she. I've had someone tell me to make my gender more noticeable. Why should I have to change for you? I hate that this has become a normal thing for society. In the 4 years I have been out, I have only met 3 or 4 trans teens that were out. We are already in hiding. The amount of people I have met that have come out in their late 30s or early 40s is astonishing. They were so afraid that they hid themselves for years. I think that they are our heroes in this because they went through decades of hiding who they are just because society said that we weren't normal. Just please let us all be who we are.
Brilliant. Next up, we're going to have Kenston student Chase come up and share his thoughts.
Hi everyone, my name is Chase. I'm a junior at Kenston High School. Forgive me if I'm a little emotional here because this is definitely a very emotional topic for me. I'm here today because I'm disgusted with what's going on. I'm disgusted that the party that claims to stand for freedom is stripping us away of our freedoms. And as an LGBTQ individual in high school, I can tell you it is hard. It's hard when 2 years ago I was president of my class for 2 years and ran again, but the year I came out is the year that I lost that election. And on top of that, the comments that are made to me, the way I'm treated in school, not just me, but anyone who's different at Kenston High School. There are vulgar, racist, homophobic comments, slurs written on the walls in bathrooms, and nothing is done. and we're just told to stay silent, and now we're told that we have to stay silent about this stuff. When school is a place for so many of us to be ourselves, if it wasn't for school, I wouldn't be myself. There's teachers like Mrs. Smith and other people who have allowed me to truly be myself and feel comfortable in my own skin. And House Bill 616 is stripping us away of all of that. They don't want us to talk about our diversity. They want us to be separated. That's what they want. They don't want us to all be diverse when richness of diversity reflects oneness. We're all different. Look around. We're all different people, different age, different race, sexes, sexuality. That's who we are. This is America. This is the world that we live in, and we need to embrace that. And to think that I might have less rights than my parents had, and that my children and my grandchildren may have less rights than I have, disgusts me. It's sickening. This is the world that we are living in. And it's our job to change that. Everyone here, people like you, are the reason why I can be who I am, are the reason why Blake can be who he is. That is who we are. And that is who we need to be. We need to show each other love. I'm a Christian. That is what God teaches me, is love. Love thy neighbor. Love each other. We are all people. We all bleed the same color blood. We're all human. We're all people. And we all struggle with our own problems. We have to come together and be one. And we can do this by getting out there and voting in November. Because we know who's stripping us of our rights and who's standing up for our rights. Vote. That is your most important thing to do if you want to protect your freedoms, is vote. It's time that we let go of these politicians, that we get rid of these politicians and the corruption that they tell us that we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that, because they know that there's a shift in this culture. There's a shift in this country, and they know that it's becoming less taboo. We're able to talk about it. We're able to talk about our sexuality, about our gender identity, when 50 years ago, this couldn't be talked about, and they want to shut that down. It's horrible. This is who we are, and stopping us from talking about this isn't in school, isn't making us go anywhere. I'm not going to be straight because I can't talk about being gay. All I'm going to do is feel more alone. And let me tell you this, 45% of LGBTQ plus individuals consider suicide. 45%. That is preventable if all we do is just come together to be one another, enact policies that actually make it so that we can receive services and help that we need. Because high school's hard enough. It's hard enough being young in this world, and it's even harder when we can't talk about this kind of stuff. So that's pretty much all I have to say here today. Just love one another. We're all people, okay? That's it. That's really it. We're all people, and we need to come together for all of this, okay?
We got some very good preachers up here today. So at this point in the schedule is where I'm supposed to come up and quote unquote get everyone fired up. If you aren't fired up by now, you haven't been paying attention. So now's the time when we get up and we do. We have learned more. We have learned about what is happening. We have learned about these demonic bills that want to change our history so that some people can feel more comfortable and some people can claim power they shouldn't have. So now I am asking you to get up, walk towards our booths over here, where Honesty in Ohio Education has information there. You can put your name in there to learn more about what they're doing. Soji has information over there about what they are doing, and also you can sign up to get more of their information. The League of Women Voters has this habit of everywhere they go bringing voter registration forms. So if you haven't registered to vote, it's a great time to do so. And then we would invite you to go inside into the social hall. We have the fans going. It's a little cooler in there. We have the water fountain is in the lobby as well. And after you get a drink, feel free to sit down and write a letter to the chair of the committee of the state and local government of the House. We will have his name up on the whiteboard in there in a second. You can feel free to take one of the sheets we have up at the front on the stage, on the communion table, because communion is not just about a symbol we do, it is the acts we take to bring love into this world. Up at that communion table, there is a sign-up sheet where you can get more info and links sent to you about how to write a letter to the editor or write letters to committee chairs. There's also fact sheets up there about some of the bills we talked about today, so you can be specific in writing your letter. Please go and do that. The letters, you can just put them in the bin that will be in there. There's a big blue bin that will be in there in a second. Just put them in there. We have two lovely people here that we can send them with Trans Ohio and with Honesty in Ohio Education, that they can take, and when they give testimony, slam them down and say, look, a bunch of people in Bainbridge, Ohio, in Giaga County are upset about this. And if people in Bainbridge, Ohio, in Giaga County are upset, you can be darn sure there's more people throughout Ohio that are too. So let's make sure love wins, stop this crap, and get moving to ensure that the stories kids hear in school are the real stories. That America's sins are confessed, because without confession, there can be no atonement. Without atonement, there can be no forgiveness. Without forgiveness, there cannot be justice or peace. All the values we as people of faith hold are under attack in these bills. So let's stop them, and let's start stopping them right now. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us in this fight.